At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a faded studio portrait from 1890 Alabama. A black family of 5, dressed in fine clothes, posed carefully in front of a painted backdrop. But hidden inside that photograph, invisible for 128 years, is a secret so devastating it changes everything we thought we knew about freedom after the Civil War. Welcome back to the Fear Sermon. I'm so glad you're here. Before we go any further, please take a second to subscribe and hit that like button. Because what you're about to see will stick with you long after this video ends. On an August afternoon in 2018, a historian named Dr. Marcus Webb was cataloging old donations at the Montgomery Historical Society in Alabama. He had examined thousands of photographs from the Reconstruction era. But this one stopped him cold. The picture showed a father standing tall beside an ornate chair, a mother sitting gracefully with her hands folded, and 3 children gathered around them. On the back, someone had written, "The Harris family, Montgomery, Alabama, June 1890, 5 years after the Civil War ended, this family looked like a picture of success. But something troubled Marcus. The parents' eyes held a wariness that didn't match their fine clothes. The mother's hands were placed with unnatural precision. He pulled out his magnifying glass and looked closer. Then his breath caught. On the mother's left wrist, barely visible beneath a lace trim, was a thin, curved scar, the exact mark left by iron shackles. Marcus leaned in, pulse racing. That scar should have faded if it was from slavery days, but it was still clear, which meant it might be more recent. He checked her right wrist. Another scar. Then he looked at the father's hand resting on the chair. The same faint marks. This wasn't just a family portrait. This was evidence. These people were escaped slaves, posing as free citizens, carrying proof of bondage on their own skin. They had walked into a professional studio, given a false name, and documented their new life, either as an act of extraordinary courage or desperate hope. This is the Fear Sermon, and stories like this are why we dig deeper. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the truth that history tried to bury. Marcus immediately started researching. He searched census records, city directories, property registrations, anything that might confirm the Harris family existed in Montgomery in 1890. Days passed. Nothing. No Harris family matching that description appeared anywhere. That kind of invisibility wasn't an accident. Prosperous free black families showed up in civic documents. The only explanation was that these people were hiding on purpose, so Marcus changed his approach. He contacted a colleague, Dr. Evelyn Torres, a specialist in photographic analysis. Evelyn confirmed the scarring was real and pointed out something even more chilling. The mother's lace cuffs weren't decorative. They were positioned to hide the scars, but not completely. Maybe, Evelyn said, they wanted casual observers to miss them. But they also wanted someone someday to look closely enough to see the truth. This photograph was insurance. Proof of what they escaped. Hidden in plain sight, Marcus went back to the archives and started searching plantation records and old newspapers. Finally, he found it. The Montgomery Advertiser, April 1889. A reward notice for 2 people named Joseph and Ruth, described as contracted workers who abandoned obligations at Riverside Plantation, Georgia, March 1889. 3 children missing. Contact the Thornton estate. Joseph and Ruth, not Harris. They had escaped from Georgia just 14 months before that photograph was taken. Marcus dug deeper into Riverside Plantation's records and discovered something horrifying. The plantation operated on a system called debt peonage. After the Civil War, former slave owners created contracts that bound freed people into permanent servitude. Joseph had been contracted in 1875, 10 years after emancipation, Ruth in 1876. They married in 1877, and every time a child was born, their debt increased. $50 to $75 added for midwives, extra rations, lost productivity. By 1889, they owed over $800. They would have worked for decades and never gotten free. The contracts were designed to be inescapable. But on March 12, 1889, Joseph and Ruth vanished with their 3 children. They walked 100 miles from Georgia to Montgomery, traveling at night, hiding during the day. Joseph was a carpenter. Ruth was a seamstress. Those skills meant they could find work without references, without papers. By July 1889, church records show a new family joining Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, Joseph Harris, carpenter, and Ruth Harris, seamstress. They had made it. But fear never left them. Every knock on the door could be slave catchers. Every white stranger could be from the Thornton estate. That's what makes the June 1890 photograph so powerful. After 14 months of hiding, they had saved enough money for a professional portrait. Fine clothes, careful composition, a fake name, but real dignity. That photograph was their declaration, "We are free." Then Marcus found the death notice. Montgomery Examiner, February 1897. Ruth Harris, age 38, suddenly. She died just 8 years after escaping. She was only 38. Joseph was left alone with 3 children. The carpentry business disappeared from city directories. The children stopped attending school. The family vanished from Montgomery. Marcus spent weeks searching other cities: Atlanta, Birmingham, Nashville, Chicago, Detroit. Nothing. Until a genealogist named Dr. Patricia Holmes found a record in Philadelphia. Mother Bethel A.M. Church, August 1898. Joseph Harris, carpenter, joining with 3 children. The notation read, "Family relocated from Alabama following death of wife and mother." Joseph had fled north. In Philadelphia, he started over again. By 1905, he bought a small house, the first property he ever owned in his own name, even if that name was still a lie. He died in 1918 during the influenza epidemic. His death certificate listed his birthplace as Virginia, a lie. Even in death, Joseph protected his children by hiding his true identity. But Marcus finally discovered who they really were. Riverside plantation records included a marriage certificate from 1877. Joseph Freeman, age 23, to Ruth Williams, age 21. Their real names: Joseph Freeman and Ruth Williams Freeman. They had been born into slavery, declared free in 1865, then trapped again by debt peonage, and finally had to escape and build an entirely new life under false names. Their courage was extraordinary. And here's where the Fear Sermon community can make a real difference. If this story moves you, please share this video and leave a comment. Tell us what freedom means to you. Marcus published his findings in 2019. The response was overwhelming. News outlets picked up the story. The photograph appeared on front pages and television screens. And then something incredible happened. A woman named Diana Thompson reached out from Chicago. She had seen the article and recognized the name Elizabeth Harris. That was her great-great-grandmother. Diana had grown up hearing a strange phrase from her elder relatives. "Remember, we paid for our freedom twice." She never understood it. Now she did. Diana was a direct descendant of Joseph and Ruth Freeman. In November 2019, 23 descendants gathered in Montgomery for a family reunion and memorial service. They stood together at the same church where Joseph and Ruth had first felt safe enough to join a community under assumed names. Diana held a large print of the studio portrait and said, "Ruth's scars are visible because she wanted someone someday to know the truth. She couldn't write, she couldn't leave letters, but she left this photograph." Those scars were her testimony, preserved for 129 years until someone finally saw them and understood. Today, That studio portrait hangs in the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. Thousands of people see it every year. Schools teach the Freeman family story. Historians have gone back through archives and found dozens of similar photographs, showing evidence of debt peonage and continued bondage decades after the Civil War. The Freeman portrait opened a door. It reminded us that emancipation was not a single moment. It was a long, brutal fight. And for many families, true freedom didn't come from a government proclamation. It came from ordinary people doing extraordinary things, risking everything, hiding in plain sight, and leaving behind clues for those brave enough to look closely. If you made it to the end of this story, you're exactly the kind of person we need in the Fear Sermon community. Subscribe, hit that like button, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And leave a comment. Tell us about a time you discovered a hidden truth in your own family history. Because every photograph holds a story, every scar has a voice, and sometimes freedom is not given. It is taken. I'll see you in the next video.